Good evening. Good evening and welcome to tonight's candidate forum for the August 4th primary election. I'm Dr. David Rolland Findlay, president of North Central Michigan College. Founded in 1958, North Central proudly celebrates 68 years of serving the residents of Emmet County and learners from across the tip of the Mid and beyond. We provide exceptional, accessible, and relevant higher education to the benefit of all. These three words begin with the letters EAR, showing that we're listening to you all and those we serve. Our aim is to prepare students of all ages for the opportunities found in a dynamic, diverse, and increasingly interconnected world. This education yields workforce talent for area employers, and it ultimately contributes to the economic health and well-being of our region. Would those in attendance who are North Central graduates or have taken a North Central class, can you please stand? Do we have anybody in the audience? All right, I got a few waves. Okay, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you much. Thank you. So North Central is on the move. Here are just a few exciting updates. On May 8th, we held our commencement exercises for 219 graduates and 281 fast-track workforce training completers. That's nearly 600 learners taking a positive step forward. We are very proud of our latest pack of Timberwolves. The college was recognized as an Aspen Prize Top 200 community college in the country. Top 200 out of 1,000. Top 20%? Yeah, good stuff. And there were only 3 of Michigan's roughly 30 community colleges, so top 10% in the state. Really, really excited. Our new Martin Yan Technology Center will be completed in the summer. As you're kind of walking around, take a look to the east end of campus. That will open for classes this fall and focus on the manufacturing trades. Our health sciences, think nursing, renovation and expansion, will be completed this fall and open for classes in the winter. So lots of changes, lots of exciting changes on campus, but perhaps the most exciting development is a new dental hygiene program and clinic. Yes, the college is going to get in the dental hygiene game. That launch planned for 2028. So our college team, working with community members, local businesses, and elected officials, among many others, seeks to make Northern Michigan the very best place to live, work, learn, and play. In fact, that's what tonight's Candidates Forum is all about. We're grateful for the political advocacy of the Petoskey Regional Charlevoix Area Chamber of Commerce Government Relations Committee. Wow, that's a mouthful. Would you please join me in thanking the folks on that body? Round of applause. North Central is pleased to continue its long-standing partnership with this committee by serving as the host venue for tonight's event. What's more, we look forward to hosting other important conversations around childcare, transportation, housing, workforce talent, as the community's convener. This, too, is part of our mission. So finally, I'm pleased to share tonight's event will be live streamed, thanks to the crew to my right, so that we might reach an even larger audience. We extend appreciation to the North Central IT team, as well as the Iron Horse Cafe staff and the physical plant crew here at the college for their good work to support this event also. Please forgive me if I've missed anyone, and without further ado, I turn the microphone over to Sarah Van Horn. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Finley, and thank you to the NCMC crew. My name is Sarah Van Horn. I'm the president of the Charlevoix Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to our 2026 primary election candidate forum. On behalf of the Charlevoix Chamber and the Petoskey Regional Chamber of Commerce, we thank you for being here, and for those of you tuning in live on the stream, and we also give a big thank you to our candidates for participating. I'm joined by Nikki Devitt, president of the Petoskey Regional Chamber of Commerce, and the two of us are going to start by giving a quick introduction for the forum. Our Chamber's Government Relations Committee looks forward to hosting this each election cycle to give our residents and business owners a chance to hear directly from the candidates on the issues that are facing our area. The questions were created in collaboration by the committee and will be asked by our forum moderator, Scott Ledour, professor of political science at North Central Michigan College. I'm going to hand it over to Nikki to go through forum format.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us. It is our great pleasure to have you here and to have this wonderful opportunity to hear from all of our candidates that were able to participate this evening. So when we do this forum, the way that we will work it is our candidates will be asked questions by our moderator in a rotating order so that each has an equal opportunity to be the first to answer. They will each have 90 seconds to answer each question. Sarah and I will be holding up time cards to help them to indicate when we are at 30 seconds and 10 seconds left, so we're able to promptly move along when time is up and give each candidate equal opportunity. And as a reminder, not just to our candidates, but also to our audience members, this is a forum. This is not a debate. This is our opportunity to hear what our candidates' plans are for the future for our communities if they are chosen to represent our area. So we ask audience members to please remain quiet and respectful and courteous as each candidate has their allowed response time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Ledour, who is going to moderate our forum.
All right. Thank you so much, as now we will awkwardly exit this stage because there's no way to get out unless it's this way. But we'd like to start tonight with the congressional candidates, and so if I could ask the congressional candidates to make their way up to the podium here. There's 4 seats. Each of you should get a seat. There's a microphone on each table. We will kind of share those microphones with your table mate here. All right. Wonderful. Thank you. So for this section of the forum, we're going, each candidate will have about 2 minutes to introduce themselves and kind of open the forum. I'm going to ask a couple questions, giving candidates time to answer each one, and then each of them will have an opportunity to close with a closing statement as we finish this part of the forum. Just as kind of a heads up for the rest of the night, after this will be the State Senate Forum, and then after that, the State House Forum. In order to respect everybody's time and keep things kind of moving tonight, we are not necessarily going to take kind of 5 or 10 minute breaks in between each forum, as that would kind of just extend this night on and on and on. So if you do need to use the bathroom or make a phone call or something like that, remember that this is being recorded and live streamed. So if you did miss a question or two, you'll always be able to check it out online later. And those links will be available on the Chamber of Commerce's website and a billion social media sites as well. So as Nikki said, we're going to move in we're going to change the order as we go tonight. And so each candidate will have 2 minutes to kind of introduce themselves, make an opening statement. I think we'll start with Callie and then move down to Matt and Kyle and then Justin, and then we'll start with questions after that. So if we want to start with Callie here with 2 minutes for introductions, and Sarah's going to have some time cards here as we go. Thank you.
Hello, is this on? Great. Hi, everybody. Callie Barr. Hello to everybody on the live stream. Thanks for coming out tonight. Grew up Traverse City, Sheboygan. Graduated valedictorian from Sheboygan High School. Met my husband at Sheboygan High. Post September 11th, he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. We traveled all over the country. I got my teaching degree from Central Michigan University. Go Chips. Matt came back from Iraq and Afghanistan with post-traumatic stress and a traumatic brain injury. I then segued into working for a nonprofit for military families and veterans. That work led me to get my law degree. I graduated from the University of Michigan Law School with honors, then worked as a litigation attorney while also helping get veterans free legal services. Folks, I'm running for Congress here in 2026 because we have an absent congressman in Jack Bergman, someone who doesn't show up for us, and when he does, we kind of wish he wouldn't. because he doesn't vote for us, all right? He voted against health care funding. We have lost 3 labor and deliveries in the past year and a half. Everywhere I go, folks have lost their health insurance because they cannot afford it anymore. He supports tariffs and the war overseas, which has driven up the cost of groceries and gas, hurt our small businesses, which often have to reprice items every day, driven up the cost of fertilizer for our farmers, and made cuts for food to children. All right? And he paid for it by giving tax breaks to the wealthiest people who have ever existed. When it comes to veterans, he's turned his back on veterans, I know. He supported legislation that will let for-profit companies, which paid him off, make money off veteran benefit claims. This is illegal. It is opposed by the VFW and by me. What I'm here to say is enough is enough. Enough is enough. It's time for a change. Join me in the fight for an affordable life. Thank you.
Thank you, Callie. I'll move on for Matt Donater.
Hello, can you hear me now? Mm-hmm. I'm Matt Donater. I'm running against Jack, our absent congressman as well, for August 4th for the Republican primary. What I'm doing is, though, I'm going to approach this a little bit differently. I'm going to approach it as doing politics from a business mindset. So I'm actually looking at politics done differently, so that it's local, driving up to the federal, not federal driving down. So your policies are actually from the local level. And that's really what we're going to focus on. But a little bit more about me is that I am a husband and a father of my daughter Violet and Lisa. I've been married for 10 years, and my daughter is a gymnast and a soccer player. But more importantly about me, I lived in Grand Rapids. Then I moved to Harvey, Michigan for my first healthcare job, where I joined the Hiawatha Land Snowmobile Club, and I actually snowmobiled the entire UP, which does help because I actually understand the importance of our trail system and how it feeds our tourism, and how that when there's a dam like an Eagle River, which is blocking it in the western UP, how that's really affecting other things like the suicide rates, which are the highest in the western UP and Michigan. So there's a lot of things that are happening, but you know that I have those UP roots, moved down to Detroit. I've been in pharmaceuticals for 22 years. Then I started a company for a medical management company. And I had 32 employees, but my whole goal by running is to focus on healthcare because I know I can fix rural healthcare access because we did it. When I was running my company, we would bring providers to patients' homes and heal them. And why we would do this is that they couldn't get to the hospital or they couldn't get to that specialist, so we'd bring that specialist or healthcare professional back to them. And that's how we could heal them. So I'll have more to talk about with that, but just a little bit about me is I've done a lot, but what I'm looking for is to unite us under as Northern Michiganders and get our district actually together to fight for the things that we care about. Because we're all here because this place is special, and we know it because we can tell the difference from downstate to being up here. And I'm going to unite this district, and that's my goal. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now Kyle.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully this works, so I'm going to shout a little bit. My name is Kyle Blomquist. I was born and raised in the Upper Peninsula over in Iron Mountain, which is over on the Wisconsin border. I'm an architect by trade, and I've been on Iron Mountain City Council for the past 11 years, about the past 6 as Mayor Pro Tem. And I'm Mayor Pro Tem in Iron Mountain not because everybody else on the board agrees with me on everything politically, but because I've earned the respect of my peers across the political landscape. I'm running because I've seen my neighbors' material conditions in the Upper Peninsula deteriorate the entirety of my life. Our hospital systems closing, our housing affordability is now no longer. It's going through the roof. I look at our seniors are returning to the workforce, not because they want to, but because they have to. And I'm watching as our government continually prioritizes profit and violence over the well-being of its own people. And so I believe in my gut that your basic needs should be treated as human rights. And so that's why I'm running for Congress. Because I support Medicare for all, I'm going to guarantee your health care. I believe as an architect and as a human being that we should house every single American, so I'm going to push housing first and for all policy. I believe that we should be entitled to a dignified existence in the American working class, so I'm going to champion living wages, paid time off, universal child care, pass a PRO Act to keep our unions strong, protect their rights to organize. And I believe that we should increase Social Security benefits to pull our retirees out of poverty. I believe that we should protect our natural resources, so I oppose the Line 5 and want that shut down. And I oppose data centers being built anywhere in the state of Michigan. And I believe that safety is a human right and humanity is universal. And so I call for the end of the genocide in Gaza and the demilitarization of our federal budget and our economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Justin.
I'm going to start out with a number, 90,000. That's how many miles that I put on in this district in the last 18 months. Going to each and every county multiple times, speaking to people like you. Every single day, 330 miles plus, because I care. People think about that. When you traveled around this district, just think about how much time and energy it takes to wake up every day, rain, sleet, snow, hail, wind, and drive around this district to hear the voices of each and every one of you. And I've done it. Interestingly enough, there are people up here that will tell you, when I get elected into Congress, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But on August 4th, you guys get to decide. Do you want someone that tells you they're going to do it? Or do you want someone who's actually going to do it and who is doing it right now? I believe that if we work together, we can build this district. And I firmly believe that each and every one of you can contribute in that cause. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, for the first question, we will start with Matt, and then we'll move on down to Justin, and then end with Callie, and then the next question start with Kyle, and everybody gets this. Okay, so the first question, for Matt and basically for everybody, the first congressional district is enormous, from Ironwood to Alpena. From your time on the campaign trail, what common struggle, goal, or desire have voters consistently shared with you across the district? And what is an issue that maybe feels unique to one specific area or one community you have visited? So in your answer, please try to reference one issue that you've heard in common across the district, and maybe one that is a little bit more localized. So we'll start with Matt.
Thank you. Yes, the biggest issue I've heard of is healthcare, is that we're a desert for healthcare, because when I actually lived in the UP, when I started my healthcare career, it was the gold standard for healthcare up there in northern Michigan. And today it's a desert. There's no providers that are in the UP. They actually have to drive even places in the UP to Wisconsin to find healthcare. So it really is a desert. But we can actually fix these things by incentivize healthcare, and we'll talk about that later. But another issue is jobs. The kids want to stay here. What do I hear from the kids the most is that they want to stay. Can you help us find a place to stay? Can we afford this house? Can we stay and find a schooling maybe that offers trade that we don't have yet? These are things that I do want to help out too with. That's what a common thing that I've heard. Also, along with jobs, is broadband, but energy costs. Energy costs is huge, so I want to do micronuclear. I think it's something that could be done here that will create tons of jobs in trade, and it can actually activate jobs that are here that are just waiting. And that's why I want to run this differently, like a businessman instead of a politician. My team's not political. I'm not political. I'm running this completely different because I actually have done things, and I want to run it differently, where you're having those local policies direct the federal. But it's seeing that same thing with these people that are complaining about the same thing, is that we can make a difference, because there's things like the Porcupine Mountains real quick. Just by the stripe of the pen, I can make that a national park after it's a national lakeshore. It'll take the camping stays from 2 to 14 days. That'll make a ton of money for that area up there and help this whole district. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Kyle, same question. Oh, also, if anybody ever needs a question repeated, please just ask me, and I'll be happy to do so.
Sure. I share the sentiment that we're all hearing about healthcare. I know what it's like to live in the Western Upper Peninsula, where you're surrounded by two things: those Great Lakes and that Wisconsin border that represents the edge of your healthcare network. I know what it's like when you cross that Wisconsin line to get your children be born, because you have identical twins. It's a high-risk pregnancy, and you end up with $30,000 worth of medical debt. I know what it's like when I drive around a district where I see people can't get primary care because there's no primary care physicians, in a district where hospital systems consolidate and they like to take nodes of care offline because they see us as customers that they can drive to the next nearest clinic that they own. Medicare for All is the only way that we are going to be able to erase these lines and take care of all of these people exactly where they are, and make sure that those doctors get adequate reimbursements because they're not having to play the game of, I want more private health insurance covered customers and less Medicaid covered customers. Well, I want to make sure that everybody has equal health care outcomes. I was just up in Sault Ste. Marie, and I'll use that as an example of what a local issue is. They've been blessed. They have the Sioux Locks up there. They have an international border crossing. But when there's a project that the federal government has in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, their housing is greatly overburdened because they do not have the supply to cover the workforce that comes up there. So people are living on the street not because they can't afford housing, but because there is no housing stock. So we need to solve those issues.
Thank you. Justin, repeat? Yep. So the 1st Congressional District is enormous, right? From your time on the campaign trail, what common struggle, desire, or goal have voters consistently shared with you across the district? And what is an issue that feels unique to one specific area or community you have visited?
Thank you. To start first, one of the things that you hear the most of is that people feel unheard. You go out and you meet in communities, and there's 36 counties that we represent. Every county has a unique circumstance or unique culture. So when you go into certain communities and you say, oh, this specific issue is touching a base, it's not. Every individual community has unique concerns or conditions that they live underneath. And the one thing that they tell me over and over, and it doesn't matter if you're in Aranet County or you're in the Keweenaw Peninsula, I don't feel heard. My concerns aren't being met. I call or I reach out and I never get a returned email or return phone call. There is no representation. And when you hear those stories over and over again and you see the different struggles that we have, it's sad. It's concerning. It's alarming. And at the same time, you ask yourself, is this what leadership is supposed to look like? If there's one thing that we should do as representatives, no matter what level you're on, you could be at the state level, you could be at the federal level, you could be even in your communities. Being present and hearing from your constituents is one of the most important things that you can do in your position. So moving on to something that's more strategic or location-based, Baraga County, food insecurity, 30%. They don't have jobs. They don't have any way to feed themselves, and that's an issue.
Thank you. Callie.
Thank you. I'm going to echo what we've heard on the stage, that health care is something we hear about throughout this district, and it's been an issue, obviously, we know for a long time. When the Sheboygan Hospital went bankrupt in 2012, my mom lost her job as a nurse, and my dad was scheduled for a surgery 2 weeks later. And for my whole life, I will never forget the image of my mom shaking, holding a credit card, hoping that it wouldn't max out so she could pay for his surgery. That's not a unique story. And so we need universal coverage for health care. What does that look like? It means that we got to have a public option, so if you want Medicare, you can have it. It also means for folks who stay on their private insurance that we have insurance reform. So there's absolute transparency. There's not non-disclosure agreements. We need to go after big pharma to make sure that we're bringing down drug costs, that you can negotiate any drug price that we have. If you look for a Medicare just for all single payer, we have folks right now that have private insurance to help cover the gaps in Medicare. So if we actually want to cover everybody in a way that we can do that, we want to make sure we have a public option that can make that happen, combined, like I said, with insurance reform and going after big pharma. But we absolutely have to get it done. When we look at a unique thing, we look at the ice storm that we had throughout this district. That impacted a specific area. We needed FEMA assistance. Jack Bergman wasn't getting it done for us. We saw utility rate spikes. We lost a timber harvest for generations throughout here, and it hurt our maple syrup folks. So there's work still to be done on that today. We need real representation here to help get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. The second question we'll focus on. We'll start with Kyle and then move on down the podium. So currently, the U.S. House of Representatives is quite narrowly divided between Democrats and Republicans. If elected, how will you work across the aisle to accomplish your goals? What strategies or bipartisan issues would you focus on that the House can be productive in such a narrowly divided chamber? So here we start with Kyle.
Sure. I actually love this question because it starts, I think, with a misunderstanding. We're taught that the reason why Congress doesn't function and our lives don't improve is because there's just such a schism between the Democrats that are in there and the Republicans that are in there. When the reality is that the Democrats that are in Congress and the Republicans that are in Congress are there for a reason, because they are paid by the same donor class to be there. And they will collude and they will do everything to make sure that they preserve this system exactly as violent and extractive as it is right now. And so what I see as bipartisan or working across the aisle, it doesn't look like, I am going to compromise my health care policy to meet my Republican brothers and sisters in the middle. It looks like Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie. Now, Ro Khanna, he supports Medicare for all, as do I. Thomas Massie does not. But Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, they're not cooperating together on a health care policy. They're cooperating together to pass a war powers resolution, to force diplomacy in the Middle East. They're coming together to stop arming Israel at a time when they're committing a genocide with our U.S. taxpayer dollars, and they will come together to expose the Epstein files and find justice for the victims. That is what I think bipartisanship should look like.
Thank you. Justin, same question.
So my whole life, I've been in conflict. In the military, I served in the United States Army. I was deployed overseas in combat. When I got out of the military, I got into conflict resolution. I've been to over 70 countries, and I've negotiated contracts in over 113 different languages. My PhD is in conflict analysis and resolution. When I look at what's going on right now in our country, division starts with dialogue. And when you're aggressive and you're angry and you point fingers at people, nothing gets done. When you call people names or you belligerently go after people, nothing gets done because you lose trust. I'm the only candidate on the Republican side that was willing to debate or have forums with Democrats around the district. We had 11 of them. I showed up to each and every one of them. I'm willing to engage in dialogue. I even post funny memes when they're sent to me by other individuals that are running for Congress who aren't here when they set their signs in front of mine. Because I want to show that it's okay to have banter, but you have to be respectful. And I believe that respectful dialogue is the way that we move forward. And the only way to do that is to lead by example. And I've done that this entire congressional campaign.
Thank you. Callie Barr. Yes. So currently, the U.S. House of Representatives is narrowly divided between Democrats and Republicans. If elected, how will you work across the aisle to accomplish your goals? What strategies or bipartisan issues would you focus on so that you can be effective in the House?
Yeah, thank you so much. Having come from a military family as well, I think there's an ingrained sense that the mission comes first, and that we're all a part of this together. We're going to rise or fall together. And when I think about, my background as an attorney, being a litigation attorney and having to negotiate agreements, you often have someone on the other side that you don't agree with, and somehow you got to come together and you got to figure out a way to settle or negotiate or to move forward. I often said, if we come into an agreement and both people walk away from the table kind of angry, you probably have a good agreement on the table, right? And so demanding absolutism is something we have to stop doing, and we have to celebrate times when we can come together. We look at the bipartisan housing legislation right now that's sitting on the president's desk, 21st Century Road to Housing to help tackle affordable housing. This is a good thing. That's bipartisan. I think also we got to celebrate some victories when we have them and make sure that we're talking about that. Thank you. I've got 30 seconds here. But I think about that a lot. And for me, coming from a military background, I think sometimes there's ways that we can come together on an issue that's important with us to help us start building that muscle of working together. You may not know this, but if you serve 4 years in the military honorably and you're not a U.S. citizen, that doesn't mean you get automatic citizenship. And so I think right away there's things we can do like say, hey, you serve 4 years honorably, you become a U.S. citizen. Let's start celebrating working together again. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Donater.
Yes, thank you. So really, I'm going to try to make this a smaller district by making the big issues smaller so we can focus on the 5 bipartisan issues. My goal is going to be to unite us as Northern Michiganders and really focus on local first. so that local jobs instead of national contractors are getting contracts, but the people that actually live here are getting them. But overall, that's how I see this, is that because I've been in sales my whole life, I have the gift of gab. So I can go in there and talk to people and actually get things done by working with the locals first, which I'm doing now with the county commissioners, is finding out what red tape do you have to cross before you actually make a promise, so that you can actually achieve that result. Instead of bringing political people with you to run a campaign, what I've chose to do is bring people that will actually help my team be better. You're a puzzle piece master if you're like a CEO, because you're looking to get better pieces in the puzzle than you. You're setting the bar high, but you really want to bring people that are based on action, accountability, efficiency, and things that are in a business. And so that's what I'm going to do. Bring people that can help us education, but to actually get things done and cross the finish line. It's really important to stop making promises and actually find out what you can do first. And that's going to be our goal, but it's going to be working on both sides, letting everybody know that I'm working on 5 bipartisan issues that are going to drive us together instead of split us apart. And that's going to be my goal.
Thank you. This next question will start with Justin. Members of Congress are called to work on issues as varied as farm policy and nuclear weapons. It's inevitable that as a member of the House, you will be called upon to render judgments on issues with which you have very little prior experience. Can you tell us about a time when you faced an issue or a challenge which was entirely new to you and how you learned more about it? What does that experience tell us, the voters, about how you would deal with issues you haven't dealt with in the past? So we'll start with Justin and then end with Kyle.
Yeah, I'll give you guys a good one. It's pretty relevant right now. Campaigning. So I'm a grassroots candidate running as a Republican. Knew nothing about being a politician, knew nothing about campaigns. I started this hoping that I would get some help from people. It's been a long journey. But I've had to do every single aspect of my campaign by myself. The digital branding, the marketing, the speech writing, going and doing interviews, sitting down in radio studios, doing all my scheduling, doing all my graphic design, working on reaching out to newspaper sources, working on calling and cold calling people, trying to get campaign finance funds, all of it. You got to learn. And this is a business for most people. But I get up every day and I do it. My day starts about 5 o'clock in the morning, ends between 12 and 2. I've had 5 volunteers that have joined my team. The longest one lasted 8 days. They said, does every morning start at 5 and end at midnight? And as soon as you hear that, you know that they're going to leave soon. But that's what it takes. That's the dedication and determination. And each one of those segments you have to learn about and you have to research. And you've got to figure out what works through trial and error. So if I can do that and get up to speed and make the progress that I've made up until this point, to this day, getting prepared for tomorrow, just think about what I can accomplish in Congress. Thank you.
Thank you. Callie.
What was it again?
Sure, yep. It's about, can you tell us about an issue or a challenge
right.
which was new to you and how you learned about it, and what can this tell us about how you would deal with new issues in the future?
Thank you. Well, as an attorney, when you take on a case, often you don't know much of anything of what's happening. And so the first thing that you have to do is you get an expert and you say, tell me about this. Tell me what's going on. How can I learn the intricacies of each part of this? And so in that experience, I learned how important it is to know where your expertise starts and when it ends, because it can make a huge difference in how you approach a case. And when I think about right now representing the folks here in this district, the first thing you got to do is meet with people. You have to know what's important to them. You have to know what they need. The other thing I'll say is when I have done that and met with folks, what I've understood is that we have a really deep bench here. We have folks who have studied what we need here and how we might move forward together. You know, this is not a me, this is a we. You may not know this, but we have a nuclear scientist who lives out near Alpena. We have a world-class economist who lives up in Leelanau. We have a gold medalist snowboarder in Iron River that I met with just last week. We got all kinds of people in this district that have a whole lot of expertise in a lot of things. And what we need to do is bring their voices, their ideas, what we want collectively to Washington, D.C. You know, this is not a seat for Republicans or Democrats. It's a seat for the people of Upper and Northern Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt. Yes.
Hello? Okay, this one's easy for me because it was my company. I was 22 years in the pharmaceutical industry, but then I switched gears, and that was because I ran for office. And because I was a Republican, the pharmaceuticals decided they didn't like me, and they fired me. They laid me off. So I actually had to take a job, because everybody does that when they lose their job. They got to take a job. I took a job I hated. It was the worst job of my life. But little did I know that job that I hated was going to be the exact experience I needed to do what I was going to do next for my company. And in 3 years, we took that company, and we had 32 employees, and we did over $150 million in revenue. That was us with zero footprint. We did that by doing healthcare to providers to patients, and we would heal them. But we actually did it because we swam upstream differently. We did it because we would take care of our people. We invested in people, not things. We gave them better salaries, better benefits, because they're going to be on the road. We got to take care of their families. It really is looking at the big picture, and then you're leading from that perspective. And I want you to know that that takes a lot. And what I call this is that, honestly, if anybody is worth a salt that's been in business, they're going to tell you that they had to fail at something before they could learn it. And trust me, I failed, but then when you know you can persevere, and this is why I bring this up, because often people will say, how can you be a Christian and a politician? And then I'll ask them, I say, how can you be a businessman and persevere without faith? Because you can let me know, because I couldn't do it unless I had faith. And if I didn't have faith, we would have never made that company, because a woman in the beginning stole $2 million and we turned the other cheek. And it literally worked out in our favor, because we ended up winning, because we were just persevering by taking out loans, sacrificing, not getting a paycheck while others were getting paid, but actually fighting through it, because they knew if you actually stopped to litigate, you would lose 32 employees. So thank you so much. And I appreciate it.
Thank you. And Kyle.
I'm an architect, and one of the under-discussed components of the architectural profession is that really you're just using the building as a device. That's all it is. And you're using that building as a device to serve an end-user group, people. And the best part of the architectural profession is honestly the first part. It's called programming. It's where you go in and you meet with those end users and you learn how they go about their daily lives. You learn about all of the things in their existing environment that frustrate them, and you try to break it down to its component pieces. You try to weed out any of the assumptions that come into that project, because that flexibility that you can bake into that project based on what the underlying needs are, that's how you can surprise people. Not only with the built form in terms of the superficial, the artifice, but the impact on their lives and the lives of the people that use that building. So my profession, that is the entire anchor of it, is going in there, speaking to the people who will use it, getting appreciation for how they use it and why they use it and what they're trying to do for the people that will visit that building. And then finding the best way to serve that. And I can't find a better analog than running for Congress and being able to shape the policy that shapes their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. This last question will start with Callie. All of you on this stage seek to challenge our current representation. Why is change necessary now, and what issue or issues would you focus on which are not being addressed now? So we'll start with Callie and end with Justin.
Okay, this was not a setup question, but I like it. So I think I started with a lot of this. There's a lot of change that needs to happen. First and foremost, we know that we have someone who's not showing up for us, hasn't had a public town hall in over 8 years. That's a real problem. We were just talking about what it means to meet with people to know what their needs are. If you're not coming down and touching grass, you have no idea what folks are what they actually need. And because of that, you take votes that hurt the people you're supposed to be representing and caring about. And that is exactly what we've seen in healthcare. That's why we are all on this stage. First issue, what do you want to address? Healthcare. And knowing that, what never should have happened is that we cut funding for our hospitals. Our hospitals are already struggling. These cuts made it worse. That means we will lose services. We've already lost 3 labor and deliveries. That's a real problem, folks. It's why when we didn't extend the ACA subsidies, we have people who lost their insurance because they can't afford it. Everywhere I go, I see that. Rising costs are a huge problem. We have the greatest period of income inequality in modern American history. This means gas prices, grocery prices. It means problems for our small businesses and our farmers. The other thing we did was we took a wrecking ball through the federal government. It's okay to cut the fat, not the arteries. When we did that, we hurt our research stations that look over our Great Lakes and our 8 million acres of forest. And we took votes against veterans, something that is near and dear to my heart. So these are all things I know that we can work on, and we can do that together. We got to this place on purpose. We can get out of this on purpose too. Thank you so much.
And Matt. Oh, sure. All of you on this stage seek to challenge our current incumbent representation. Why is change necessary now? And what issue or issues would you focus on that are not being addressed now?
100% it happens to happen now because of the job situation that really the environments that's been created is creating a place where we can't stay here. We want to stay here, our kids want to stay here, so we've got to go back to those roots to create efficiencies, productivity, accountability, approach this a little bit differently and run it with a different mindset where you're actually working to work with people. You're not saying you're going to change on what you believe or who you are because you want to be honest and transparent so that both sides know where you're coming from. But what you want to do is that you're going to say, hey, we're going to focus on 5 bipartisan issues, healthcare being one of them. And I'm going to tell you, incentivized healthcare is better than socialized medicine because what it does, it creates a quality care market where it incentivizes the market to bring in better providers for us, actually improving care, improving those chances that you're going to actually get better care. And those are the things that I look at from 25 years of healthcare experience. Where those reforms come are going to be where she had said maybe some with the pharmaceutical companies or maybe they're going to be with the healthcare companies. But somebody's going to have to give to take because there's got to be a bend and a blending of the money. But really a lot of it can be done through reallocation. And this is where I can see it. Where I would go in for Congress right away is just to change the power of the purse because I have that power. I can change those fee schedules. That's where I would go first because it's something I can do without a lot of effort in changing what's going on. But then I could start to create a market and see how that's going to feed itself by creating a drive for providers to come up here because they'll make more money here than they will downstate. And that's my goal.
Thank you. Kyle.
This might surprise people, but, I'm not just running against Jack Bergman. I'm running against the system that Jack Bergman represents, and that system is fostered by the establishments of both major political parties. That we need to recognize that these systems have been constructed intentionally, that they are broken by design, and we need to address that across the board. What I see in my daily life is that our healthcare system is crumbling, our housing is unaffordable, and our lives are getting less and less prosperous. I don't believe that that is something that we should normalize, and yet we have. In fact, we're in the stage of our cycle that in the end of the Soviet Union we called hypernormalization. Everybody, the best they could do, they knew the system was collapsing, but the best they could do was go about their everyday lives, go to work, love their families, and just allow things to go. I can't allow that anymore. And what really physically compelled me to run in this race, yes, I want my neighbor's health care treated as a human right. Yes, I see as an architect everything that's wrong with our housing policy. Yes, I see, just like I saw earlier today at Lake Superior Academy, a Bitcoin mine pumping out 80 decibels towards a Montessori outdoor school. I see how that is encroaching on our community. But what physically compelled me to run in this race is as I'm sitting in Channing, Michigan, halfway between some of it and the rest of it, and I see a kid that looks like my kid, but by an accident of their birth, that kid is in bags in their parents' arms. And that is my tax dollars that did that. And Jack Bergman that voted for that. And there is not one person other than me in this race who is committed to stopping that.
Thank you. We'll end this question with Justin.
The one thing that's missing in our district is courage. What is courage? It's the ability to stand up to things that are wrong and try to make them right. It's having the intestinal fortitude to say no when others say yes. Right now, we're struggling as a nation. We're nearly $40 trillion in debt, and that keeps ticking every day. We don't have balanced budgets anymore. We don't believe in fiscal responsibility. In addition to that, we refuse to have dialogue and discussion to make things better. We choose sides, politics over people. And in that process, anytime you stand up against the establishment, you're thrown out. You're primaried, you're challenged, your voices are silenced. That's not living in a constitutional republic. That's nearly living in a dictatorship. So it takes courage for someone to stand up and say, enough is enough. I've had courage to defend our country in combat. I've worn this American flag on my shoulders, on my chest, and on my lapel pin when it wasn't popular in countries that don't like us. Courage is something that I live by. It's an ethos.
Thank you. To close this part of tonight's forum, we'd like to give each candidate a minute or so to wrap up and to close with the voters, both here and on the live stream. And so to stay in order then, we'll start with Matt as the first closing statement and then go down the podium and end with Callie. Matt.
All right, thank you. I just want everybody to know that I am self-funding my own campaign. This is the first time Jack's ever had anybody run against him with money, because we've always had grassroots candidates that run. The problem is that they can't reach those 120,000 voters that come home. And that's really when the race ends, and this is what he was talking about with the establishment locking you out, is when the absentee ballots drop. That's really when a grassroots candidate loses, because they haven't been able to touch those 40,000 people. And that's really what our campaign has been focused on, getting our message out, but it's to deliver the results that we're going to come here and actually deliver, because we've got enough skin in the game, because we're actually self-funding this and not taking PAC money, that our results do matter, because that's what's going to get us reelected. And I say us because that's you and me, because that's who I serve. All right? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kyle.
You know, I tell it like it is. I say what I mean what I say. You know, I live in Dickinson County. It's a rural red county, and most of my friends to this day are Republicans. But I don't see them as Republicans no more than I see myself as a Democrat. I see us all as members of the American working class. Because the truth is, if you sell some of your finite time on this earth for $1, and at any point you stop, this system abuses you, jails you, or forgets you, then we have that in common. And we have a tremendous amount of power and agency if we just start to look at these things collectively and start to pull the cart in the same direction. I really encourage you all to look into our campaign. We have our table back there. Grab a yard sign if you can. Grab some information. Donate to our campaign if you're willing to. It's a massive district. And we're running this thing clean as it can be. And I hope you all will give me your vote on August 4th. Send me there in November, and I'll send Jack back to Louisiana. Thanks.
Thank you. Justin.
You know how you make a difference when you don't have money? You go to each and every town, village, township, and city in the district. I've been on tour now for the last 8 days. I'm going to every single one of those in 36 days consecutively to speak to every person that I possibly can, to show them what hard work is. See, when you're raised in the district, you grew up in the district, you graduated from high school in the district, money isn't impressive. Hard work is. It's not about how much money you make that makes you significant in our communities. It's what your word is. It's if you show up when you say you're going to show up, and you do what you say you're going to do. I'm a grassroots candidate. I'm from Grayling, Michigan. I'm from here in the district. And I'm working as diligently and hard as possible to earn your vote on August 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. And Callie.
We're coming up on 250 years of being a country. We were promised at our founding life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What I'm going to tell you is you can't pursue happiness, you don't have liberty and freedom if you can't afford the basic necessities of life. We right now are at the greatest period of income inequality in modern American history. If there's one thing that's true that we need to know is that this fight is not left versus right. This fight is up versus down. When we are able to come together to have a voice in our economy, we're going to be able to have a voice in our democracy. I want to be clear about this. I have been in every single corner of this district, and what I need you to know is that we are the ones who built this country, we are the ones who fight its wars, and we, by God, are going to make it work for us. Vote for Callie Barr on August 4th and November 3rd. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of the candidates for being here tonight and sharing their views with us. If we could have one round of applause for all of them as they leave the stage. Thank you so much, everybody. And we will ask the state Senate candidates to make their way up here. Thank you so much. And the waters will be replenished. So. Thank you. All right. If we had a curtain, we'd open the curtain now. But well. All right. So this will begin the state Senate candidate portion of the forum tonight, and we are very happy to have 3 candidates with us tonight. We'd like to give each of them a chance to introduce themselves as we begin here, and so we will start at the front here with Kate.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Kate Gallup. This is my first time running for office and my first candidate forum, so thank you for joining me in this experience. So I decided to run for office because over the last year and a half, I've gotten very involved in my community and various activism. I got involved in the Money Out of Politics ballot initiative, which prohibits large government contractors and public utilities from donating in campaigns they have a conflict of interest, because I wanted to see some reform in the system. I also collected signatures for ranked choice voting and invest in my kids, which would put an income tax surcharge on the top 1% of earners in Michigan to help put money into our schools. These things matter to me because for the last few years, I've been a high school math teacher. Before that, I worked as a patent examiner at the Patent and Trademark Office, and I went to school for engineering at U of M. One thing I learned in engineering school, getting my materials science engineering degree, is there's something in materials called fatigue. It's not when you just bend something, it breaks. It's not when you just hammer something and it shatters. It's when incremental little stresses wear something out until it fails. And that's what's happening in our system. People are worn out by these little stresses that just keep getting worse, and the system is failing. I want to fix that. I can fix that. Some of the things that really matter to me is passing MyCare here in Michigan, which was proposed in the House, which would be universal health care here in our state. It matters to me because my best friend's daughter was born with half a heart, and she had to go on Medicaid in order to pay for those surgeries, but while doing that, she had to navigate a bureaucratic system that was its own burden. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thanks.
Now, John.
So I'm John DeMoose. I'm your current state senator, and I can't tell you what an honor it is to serve you in Lansing. I ran for this office because I love the United States of America and because I love Northern Michigan. In the year 2000, my father and I started a company which ended up becoming a film production company, and we produced national television specials, and we started it with one goal in mind, and that is, in this deeply divided era that we live in, there must be certain things we can all celebrate as Americans. And we produce great television specials on Arlington Cemetery and Medal of Honor recipients and things directly on the American character, all in an attempt to bring people together. And I run for this office, too, because I love Northern Michigan. And we have very, very unique priorities up here. Most people don't realize the rest of the state is very different from what we face up north. And so my whole goal in Lansing is to bring people together to solve solutions, real solutions up here, things that we all care about, like housing and affordability, and our energy concerns. These are real jobs where we have real considerations and real work to do. And the only way we get it done is by bringing people together, Republicans and Democrats, North and South, in a spirit of grace and civility and friendship. And I think that's what's defined my term in the Senate, and hopefully it's been enough to earn a second term, to earn your trust for re-election. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to share the microphone with Mitchell? There we go. Yep.
Hi, I'm Mitch Treadwell. I've grown up in Traverse City. I'm a third-generation Northern Michigander. I went to the other community college, Northwestern Michigan College, before going to Michigan State University for environmental biology. Worked several years for the DNR before getting involved in my local government, first serving on the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Parks Commission, the Housing Commission, but now I serve as a twice-elected city commissioner and planning commissioner for the city of Traverse City. And we've done some good things in Traverse City. We fixed 6 bridges downtown. We replaced our failing dam. We invested millions in our sewage treatment plant, all before we faced this spring the worst flood in recorded history. But that option isn't something that other communities across northern Michigan have access to do. Traverse City is blessed with a healthy tax base, a great bond rating, and the ability to borrow and qualify well for state grants. Communities like Boyne Falls, which also has a failing dam, don't have those resources. Or when Pellston needs to put in a sewage treatment plant and a water system, they don't have the bond rating that Traverse City does. That's an opportunity for the state to step in, because so many of the issues that we face, housing, managing tourism, economic development, transportation, aren't limited to just our municipal boundaries. When we have flash flooding, as we saw just this afternoon, that requires regional solutions, and the state needs to help our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question will start with John, and then we'll move down to Mitchell and then back to Kate. So if elected, any of you, right, if you're elected in November, you would be one of 38 state senators. The state house has 110 members, making you only one of 148 legislators. In such a large group, it will be a challenge to get your specific issues heard and addressed in your first year or two. Growth in this job is likely to come through frustration and failure. Tell us about a time when you experienced failure, and what did you learn from this experience, and how will it inform your work if elected in November?
That's great. I mean, you bring up, first of all, a really, really good point, that we're one of 148 people. But what's really important to remember, people always talk about Knuckles North. They hold up the hand there. And out of those 148 legislators, there's only 17 of us from Knuckles North. And I always say Knuckles is not up north. It doesn't qualify for me. But the bottom line is we really, you see the disadvantage we can be at. And to get our voices heard, we have to stick together. And so that's a critical part. One thing I'll tell you is you're right. We get faced all the time with legislation. And I'll tell you one area which it wasn't really a failure, but it took me a while to figure out, is I thought when I first ran for office, when I was in the House, I would do a good job at this because I'm a well-researched guy. I watch a lot of news. I read a lot of books. I read a lot of newspapers and things. And what I quickly learned was that I did know a lot about 5 or 6 issues. But 95% of what we legislate on is either new or I know enough to be dangerous on it. And the point of the matter is I had to sort of humble myself and say, you know what, I got to start listening. But what a beautiful fact about our government, because it forces you to be an actual representative of the people. And it took me a while to learn how to do this, but to build my coalition of people who I can call when I need mental health advice, or when I need housing advice, or when I need health care advice, these type of things. So it's actually very refreshing to know that's how our system works.
Thank you. Mitchell.
Well, going back to the flooding, not only did our infrastructure hold, but we actually did lose 2 parking lots in Traverse City. And upstream, we had a bridge completely washed out. We had another bridge that was closed for a week and is still sandbagged. So that is a case where we have to recognize where our weak points are. We have to work to develop potential solutions to proactively manage what the risks that can be present are. How do we address and build resiliency both in ourselves and our networks? How can I reach out to other lawmakers, reach out to other communities? Traverse City, Charlevoix, Petoskey are all tourist-centric communities, but they aren't the only tourist-centric communities. If we're balancing how short-term rentals fit into our housing landscape, we don't have to come up with a solution whole scale. We can listen to things that have worked in southeastern Michigan, in St. Joseph. We can look further north to places in the UP and how Marquette and Munising have balanced that. But we also need the state to say what are some best practices that we can all work with.
Thank you. And Kate.
So I mentioned that I work on the Invest in My Kids ballot initiative, and that was a failure for me because we didn't get enough signatures across the state in order to change our state constitution and allow that funding to flow into the school aid fund and then flow into our schools. But along the way, I formed teams of people who were also collecting. I did listening sessions to get feedback from people about what they want to see, what they want their communities to look like, how they feel that they contribute to their communities. A lot of us help each other out. A lot of us have worked in schools or have kids in schools, but one of the biggest things that people do is the taxes they pay. So having those conversations with people on how we want to grow our revenue in order to put it into education for people in our state really matters. And I continue to have those conversations, and I continue to approach it in this district with a lot of curiosity and learning about where I'm from. I live in Leelanau County. We're out of formula there. So we don't really, in that specific county, need higher per pupil funding, but there's a lot of school districts really suffering in District 37, this district that goes all the way up to Sault Ste. Marie's. There's dropping enrollment, and additionally, funds just don't go as far. Even when they say, hey, we have the highest per pupil funding in inflation-adjusted dollars, it doesn't meet where it was 40 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll start this next question at the end with Mitchell. What is an issue facing this state that you think is incredibly nuanced and complex, but is frustratingly boiled down to a soundbite on television or a quick TikTok? How would you move that issue off of quick soundbites towards a solution for our state and region?
Well, in a word, housing. It's something that I hear across northern Michigan, in Traverse City, and in literally every community. And you can say it's a simple matter of it costs too much, which it does, but then how do we actually build quality housing? How do we make housing available for the people that need it? How do we keep those price points something that is affordable? In Traverse City, we have, with the Housing Commission, built a lot of housing, not all in Traverse City. I was at a groundbreaking last week for a 48-unit apartment complex in Garfield Township, but that is a drop in the bucket compared to the broader picture. We need to invest in our communities. We need to recognize where it makes sense to build rather than just building everywhere. We need to see what limitations, be it water and sewer infrastructure, enough electricity, where we actually have high-speed internet, and see those as the places that we need to invest. And we need to recognize that we have places to build, but there may be challenges, be they brownfield sites with past contamination, they might be flood-prone, but we need more housing. We need to balance where it fits in, and it needs to have a lot of hard conversations in every community about how and where that happens.
Thank you. Kate.
Yeah, so I would also say housing. It's one of the biggest issues when I ask people what they're most concerned about is cost of living, and a lot of that deals with housing. And so it might come down to as simple as saying just build more, which we do need more supply, absolutely, but there are these complicated webs to navigate. And so I've been going to a lot of housing forums and learning from the different groups and the different tax breaks that are available for developers in the area. And I think it goes hand in hand with the general infrastructure that also needs to be built to support our communities moving forward. So with housing, there's also questions around having a statewide sewer code and how people are dealing with that in their neighborhoods as more housing gets built, and how do we handle more people in areas dealing with infrastructure that it wasn't meant to handle this many people, and keeping our air, water, and land clean as we're doing the builds and we're continuing to develop our communities. Pretty much the only way that we can bring down housing costs is to have more housing supply. And so there's definitely a lot of money going into building some lower income housing, but one of the ways that people can also build housing using their own infrastructure is to have accessory dwelling units. And so that's something I would like to continue looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. And John.
Your question was fairly nuanced, too. Can you repeat it real quick?
Yeah. What is an issue facing the state that you think is incredibly nuanced and complex, but is frustratingly boiled down to a soundbite on television or a quick TikTok? And how would you move that issue off of the sound bites towards a solution for the state and our region?
Okay, I mean, you could put almost any issue into that, because we have got to begin to dig deeper as voters and really pay attention to what's going on. But I think what I put forward right now is our relationship with technology and AI and social media. Because this is a complicated technology that you can't just run off and say ban the whole thing, because we'd be missing out on great opportunities. But we also can't run like the tech industry wants us to, headlong into anything goes. I mean, you look at data centers right now, the hot topic here. I mean, the bottom line is there's a lot of serious concerns we have. We have environmental concerns. They don't end up driving a lot of jobs for us. We have instances around the country. There's one down in Virginia where 40% of the capacity of this data center is used to generate AI porn, which is devastating for our society. However, we do all rely on our phones, and good things can happen from this thing. And I know I talked to somebody recently who was able to self-diagnose a disease all the doctors were missing by putting all of his symptoms into AI. So there's tremendous promise, but we need to wrestle with ourselves as to what the trade-offs are, where the guardrails are, what can be helpful, and what can be absolutely destructive to our society.
Thank you. And we'll start the next question with Kate. In Michigan, we face some problems which are going to take decades to solve. What is an issue you care about where we will only be able to measure success or big results far after you leave office?
So the first thing that's coming to my mind is definitely centering our care for our environment. And so some of the things that I've been concerned about are Line 5 and whether that will contaminate our Great Lakes. So whether we are able to prevent that, which I'm for, making sure that we don't have oil spills in our Great Lakes and people can enjoy those waters and our communities can thrive on the tourism that it has, will be told into the future. And along with centering our environmental care, which is something that is today and into tomorrow, is the question of AI data centers. And it's the question of how that is going to affect the wildlife, how that's going to affect the people and their health, and whether there's going to be contaminants that happen from that. And so what we do today is going to have ramifications in those environmental areas for years and years and years to come. So one of the things I recently learned about as my boyfriend was looking for housing was which I'd heard before, but it became more relevant, was the contaminated water plume in Mansalona. And I just think that we all want to make sure that we have drinking water into the future and that people are able to enjoy this environment without further contamination like that. Thank you.
Thank you. And John.
So something that we won't necessarily know whether we were successful or not with for a decade or more, I would say is one of the things that absolutely drives me, fits into that category, and that is helping to build an economy that works year-round for the people who live here. And this was born out of my own personal experience as well. My wife Margot and I have 4 children, a 28-year-old, 26, 24, and a little 12-year-old sitting out here. And all 3 of our older kids had to leave the area to find work. 2 live in Virginia and 1 in Pittsburgh. And the fact is I miss them. And the bottom line is there's so many problems that need to be fixed and challenges that need to be overcome to change that, which we won't know if it works for another 10 or 12 years when these kids start moving back. But it means addressing all the things we've talked about tonight. It means addressing housing, our housing crisis. It means doing economic development types of things, which we've worked with a lot of people in the Northern Chamber Alliance on these things. It's going to take investment. One of the things is I am the co-chair of the Hospitality and Tourism Caucus. But we can't just have that. That's like eating candy 3 meals a day. We've got to get more medium-sized factories here and other careers, high-tech careers, military careers, all sorts of things. And this is going to take time to develop. And then once we know, it's one of those things, you'll know it when you see it because there's going to be a lot more young people raising families here.
Thank you. Mitchell.
Well, and one thing that it could show results in a year, it could show results 40 years from now, is better disaster preparedness. When we've seen ice storms, flooding, wind events, we can pray that they don't happen, but eventually you will have that 100-year flood. You will have that ice storm hit again. And we can build more resiliency in our electrical grid. We can build better infrastructure that can handle a flood event. But you don't know whether that bridge will hold or whether you needed to engineer it to that high standard until that 100-year or 400-year flood comes through. You won't know if you did a good job of maintaining forests for both the state forests and for the urban forests in a city like Petoskey and for various property owners across the state until that windstorm, that ice storm comes through and you see how well your forest held up compared to other areas. But it's something that, frankly, we needed to start doing yesterday because those storms will come. We need to be prepared, and there's never too soon to start getting ready.
Thank you. This question will start with John and then end with Kate. What is a belief, either political, social, economic, religious, or anything, which you have completely changed your mind on in your life? What changed it, and what does that tell us about the future of you as an elected official if you win in November?
Well, you're asking big questions that you have to answer on the fly, but you know what? I've actually got one. It's been interesting because serving in the legislature has really taught me that the world is way more complicated than I thought it was. And I find myself, especially economically, being challenged all the time. That I started off what I thought was just a hardcore conservative. I believed in free market economics, which I still do, and I believed in limited government, which I still do, and no new taxes, which I still do. But I've been really challenged that people have come to us with serious needs. I mean, struggling young mothers who can't afford to feed their babies, people who can't afford their water bills. That's a perfect one. I'm working on a water affordability plan with a Democrat out of the city of Detroit. I actually have on my desk, and you mentioned religion, I have on my desk on the Senate floor a statue. It looks like a homeless man. It's called Homeless Jesus. It's modeled after a big statue because I am a man of faith. And the only way you know it's Jesus is there's holes in the hands and feet. And it's there specifically to remind me of Matthew 25, which says, whatsoever you do for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you do for me. And it's there to wake me up to don't just knee-jerk go to automatically the conservative position on things, that there are people out there who need help, that there is a role for government. And that has been sort of the most wonderful, eye-opening thing because it's allowed me to work with all kinds of different people on projects I never thought I would support or work on, like this RX Kids program for mothers and kids and some different things like that. So my mind has really been changed quite a bit on that area.
Mitchell.
Yes. One thing that I've changed, especially as I've gotten more involved in housing, is rent control. Back when I was a college student, I thought it was a great thing. You set the rent at something and then it doesn't go up, or it goes up only by a certain amount. But what we have seen in New York and many other communities is that sets up a disparity between the people that were able to get into a rent control department and the people that then have to compete for a limited number of spots on the free market and pay 3 times as much. What we really need is zoning that allows housing to happen where it makes sense to happen. We need tools in place from local, state, and federal sources to develop housing, to provide tax breaks where it makes sense, and ultimately have a fair playing field that allows everybody seeking housing to be able to find housing that meets their needs. Also, rent control sets only a ceiling for those properties. It doesn't create an incentive for more people to get involved in the program. It can be great for the people that are already in the program, but if you are a new landlord or somebody that wants to build an apartment complex and really wants to help provide housing for that teacher that just got a job here, the nurse that is moving out of her parents' house and wants an apartment of her own, you need to provide more space for them to live.
Thank you. And we'll end with Kate.
So I guess the biggest thing that's changed in my life is just thinking that everything, way back in the day, Kate thought that almost everything could be solved with free market investment and innovation. So I went to school for engineering because I really thought that technology was the solution to every single problem, and if we could find a way to make clean energy more affordable, if we could find a way to make more healthcare devices or all these different technological adaptations, that we would solve all issues in society, and we could get there because the products would be so great that everyone would buy them and they would just see that society is getting better. And I've definitely flip-flopped on that because I think that for me, like, there is a big role of government. I'm a millennial, and so we've seen things not improve in my lifetime in a lot of these ways, and we've seen the way in which technology and its adaptation has been filled with inequality and a widening wealth gap where some people have access to things and other people don't, where there's great inventions that never come to market because there's not policies around them to help them get there, where companies sometimes sit on solutions because that's not their solution, so they're not going to make money on it. So for me, I see this huge role of government to solve problems and for us to have some of these socialized programs, because we're going to get there through government, not through innovation in the free market. Thank you.
Thank you. As we close this portion of the forum tonight for the state Senate candidates, we'd like to give each of them a minute to leave you with a last concluding thought. And so we'll start with Mitchell on this one and then end with John.
Well, over the last 18 months, I have taken what I've learned in Traverse City and been listening to people across the district, going up to Northport and seeing how they are handling short-term rentals, talking with folks just last week in Ellsworth about how they're replacing or trying to replace a culvert that is grossly under capacity and needs to be rebuilt, but they don't have the funding for. Talking to people up in Sheboygan about what to do with a burned out paper mill that is now an albatross that can't allow the city to move forward and actually replace a dam or repair a dam that also needs work. We need someone willing to listen to all the communities in the district and to bring those solutions to Lansing and try to work on what's best for Northern Michigan.
Thank you. Kate.
Sometimes we spend a lot of effort focusing on the way the system is and how we can work to make incremental change. But to me, it's important for us to start envisioning the way that things can be so that people are leading good lives here in Northern Michigan. What does that look like to have educational systems that work for everyone? What does that look like to have medicine for all, right? What does that look like where we can want good things for ourselves and an easier life for ourselves and our family and our neighbor, right? We have had generations where we've had the biggest wealth growth, the biggest productivity growth in my lifetime. But a lot of us haven't had access to it, and it doesn't feel like our lives have gotten easier. It doesn't feel like that because they're not. For most people, they're working more, not less. They're not making more, they're making less. They're not affording more, they're affording less, except for a very select few. So I want to change that for Northern Michigan. I want people to have easier lives, less fatigue in it. My name's Kate Gallup. Please vote starting now with your absentee ballots and on August 4th.
Thank you.
Well, I would just say that no matter who you're voting for, we all need to start demanding more of the people we elect. That means dive deeper into the issues, and it means don't let anybody, Republican or Democrat, just play games and tell you the party lines, because this is a real job. I can tell you that I am gone morning, noon, and night. If we're not in Lansing in session, I'm racing to Sault Ste. Marie or to Leelanau County or to Traverse City. There's a natural disaster going on here. There's a healthcare clinic opening up here. There's a child care clinic that we're trying to do new things. There's human trafficking laws to be passed. There's so much to be done. So find serious people, serious thinkers, and serious hard workers who are not going to just sit here and fight with one another and play the political game, but who are going to roll up their sleeves and work together, put aside the mindless partisan bickering, and do actual real things to help this state. And I hope you'll vote for me again in November. Thank you.
I want to say thank you to our candidates. We can give them a round of applause as they exit the stage. Thank you so much for tonight. And we will welcome our State House candidates up here for the last portion of our forum. Up and welcome, welcome. Thank you, everybody. As we've done in previous parts of the forum, we wanted to give each candidate 2 minutes to introduce themselves and give an opening statement. We'll start in this case with Parker and then move on to Brendan and then Melissa.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thanks to the Northern Michigan Chamber, the Petoskey and Charlevoix Chamber. I'm Parker Fairbairn, fifth generation Northern Michigander here, raising the sixth generation now. My wife's here with our 3-week-old. You know, we've got a lot of good stuff going on in Northern Michigan here, but I would say this. I'm in my first term of office. This is my first re-election, and I came into office saying I was going to bring integrity into the 107th House District, and I believe we've done that. I'm showing up. We do office hours all the time, all over the district. I've been to every island many times. We do island hopping coffee hour tours. They're very fun, and the people on the islands appreciate you showing up. But for me, it's simple. Service is at the root of Fairbairn's since we've been in Northern Michigan. We've been serving our community. And I'm just doing that on a slightly higher scale now in the State House, and it's been a real honor to be able to do that, but a real opportunity to work alongside Senator DeMoose and some great people getting policy things done in the state legislature. You know, there's so many instances where we've had the ability to work together, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, to get some very good things done. And I'll look forward to talking about those here in a little bit. So thank you for the invitation and a wonderful forum.
Thank you. Brendan.
We might need a third microphone down here as well.
I think we can share.
We'll just share?
Yeah, right. Yep.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Brendan Ryan, also running for the 107th. And I was born and raised here in Petoskey. I'm a structural engineer. Growing up, my parents sent me down to the Catholic Church, St. Francis, down in Petoskey. They sent me there for Sunday school in the morning. And one morning we were sitting in class, Sunday school, and the teacher asked, can anyone tell us what the golden rule is? It was a pretty easy softball question. Everybody knows. Whoever has the gold makes the rules. Was not the right answer. But that is what I answered. And I wasn't trying to be funny at the time, but my grandfather had a blanket in his house that I had gotten that off. It was like Murphy's Law or something like that. But I bring that up because 5-year-old me got that question wrong then, but I think that there are a lot of people continuing to get that question wrong today. I think we have a developed billionaire class in this country that has adopted that as a mantra, where if you have accumulated the wealth, you are the one who gets to make the rules for the rest of us. And that does not work for me, and it does not work for Michigan. It doesn't work for the United States. I have a platform that has 5 basic points. It is jobs, healthcare, housing, education, and the environment. And the reason I've focused on those is that those are areas in which we have people imposing a will on us that is different than what is in our best interest. And it's something that I don't think we have to accept anymore. I am here to present a better solution, a better set of solutions. I'm here to use logical decision-making and have us work together to find a way that Michigan can do something that's for all of us and not just for what the wealthy have imposed upon us. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa.
My name is Melissa Perrin, and I'm from the Sioux. I have 5 kids that I've been raising. My husband is a Michigan Department of Corrections officer, which is kind of what launched me into this whole roadway that brought me here. I've spent the last year advocating with legislators in Lansing to try to help them understand this staffing crisis that is essentially destroying our communities in the UP. Explaining to them that these officers are working 16-hour shifts up to 6 days in a row. But I've been met with either resistance or mostly silence. I've had a legislator that has been working closely with me, and I do appreciate that. But I noticed that the rest of them were out of touch and didn't really care. And so I figured the solution to that is to be the legislator that cares. I want to be down there working for the district. I have a plethora of things that I'd like to see improve in our area, but the top of that being like education and supporting our teachers and bringing, supportive jobs into our economy so that our kids can stay. I have 5 of them, and I'd like them to stay close to home and not to leave, so I'm missing them myself. So there are a lot of things that I think that we can do a little bit better, and I'd like the opportunity to do those. So thank you.
Thank you. The first question will start with Brendan and then move on down to Melissa and then back to Parker. What did the ice storm of 2025 teach you about Northern Michigan? Where did we shine, and where do we still need to improve? And how would you relay those needs to state and federal leaders?
Well, the first thing it taught me was how fragile birch trees are, because there aren't a lot of them left, at least the tops of them anymore. But the big thing it taught me is how quickly and how selflessly people in this community in Northern Michigan jump into action. I went out there, we were traveling back and forth and had to come back up here for that. And I had to grab a chainsaw, I had to cut my way into my parents' driveway, and I expected to be doing a lot more work on the way there. And just about every path along the way, I got to a store as fast as I could, and just about every path along the way, there were already trees cut up, pushed off to the side. There were people out there with their 4-wheelers towing things aside. I almost couldn't get there fast enough to help out because somebody had already gotten there before me. It was phenomenal to see. There were people sharing gasoline, there were people sharing generators, there were people opening their houses to other people. One of the things that teaches us, though, is just how underestimated some of these events can be. We have not done a good job of preparing for the effects of climate change. And whatever you want to say about why that is happening, it is coming, and it is going to change things more than just a couple extra degrees of warmth in the summer and a little bit shorter winters. It's going to cause extreme weather events just like that. It's going to cause tornadoes, and it's stuff that we have to be paying attention to now, we have to be preparing for, and we have to be trying to mitigate the damage the best that we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa.
Being from the UP, we actually didn't get to experience a whole lot like you guys did down here, but from watching what I was seeing on social media, it was amazing to see the communities coming together and working hard and making sure to take care of one another. But it did show us that our energy, like the energy that we have down here is fragile, and that we need to work on building up the infrastructure and strengthening that so that for future storms, like Brendan said, that are going to happen. I mean, the last 2 winters have been really brutal. We want to be better prepared for those. We need to get action plans in place to prevent those types of things from happening. Now everybody has a better idea of how to respond to it, but we want to be able to support people when they need that.
Thank you. Parker.
Well, the Great Northern Michigan Ice Storm of 2025, that was a doozy. So, I mean, it was a lot of sleepless nights, I'll tell you. We were working around the clock, really, working with emergency managers, working with the state, MSP, MDOT, all these different organizations trying to get roads clear, get power restored. But it really prompted me, and almost right after the ice storm, we were working on legislation to get aid because we hadn't received the aid, and the federal government's actually helped out in a big way, but we still need state support, and we were able to pass. It was my first bill I passed out of the state house, which was a $100 million plan to help with ice storm recovery. We passed it. It was a very bipartisan vote, and it sat in the Senate, and I thought, one of the reasons it sat there is just politics. I mean, if this would have been downstate, I think you would have seen the money from the state get there, but it didn't. And that's a problem. It's a problem we face being from northern Michigan and having less legislators and less people advocating for us. But it also prompted me to look at legislation that I'm working on with the Northern Michigan Chamber Alliance right now, which is to change the emergency manager system that we have right now, which is ran through Michigan State Police, and most other states don't do that. So we're looking to move it out of Michigan State Police, create a new department that would be able to oversee the emergency management with real professionals who know what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. This question will go to Melissa first. Imagine you're explaining your candidacy and platform to a voter who has completely lost faith in the political process, believes that all politicians are corrupt, and that participation in the political process is meaningless. How do you respond to that voter?
I've actually spent the last year working in rooms from people all across the political spectrum, and a lot of them feel that way from both sides. And I think that the most important thing that you can tell them is that it's not about politics anymore. It's about protecting our communities. It's about building our communities up and working with one another. It's not one side versus the other, but it's all of us working for a better future for our kids and a better future for our communities. And I think that when you present it that way, it kind of changes their take towards that, and they soften a little bit, because then they kind of see it that it is all of us working together. It isn't just us versus them or us versus politicians. That's not the case. It's us as a community working together to make things better for everyone.
Thank you. Parker.
Yeah, well, I've knocked on a lot of doors, thousands and thousands, and you talk to some people at the doors who say, "I'm not voting this cycle. I don't vote anymore because I believe the system's messed up." And I have a lot of stories like that knocking on the doors, but I have a conversation with them, and I had this conversation with this one gentleman on Beaver Island, out in the middle of nowhere on Beaver Island. And he said, "You know, I really just don't plan on voting this time around." And this guy had voted in elections previously very consistently. And I asked him, "What's the reason?" "Well, I just think, politicians don't listen." And I said, "Well, I'll plan on coming back to Beaver Island once I'm elected, and you can tell me that I'm not listening." He didn't say that to me, but I show up and I go back to these locations, and the people are actually very encouraged by the amount that our politicians are showing up. And I feel like you have these conversations with these individuals, whether they're at the door, at their houses, or coffee hours that I have a lot of. And it really just brings them back into reality of what this representative government is that we have. So I encourage people to show up at forums, show up at coffee hours, go down to Lansing and talk with your electeds, because we're available, and if you schedule an appointment with my office, you'll get in. So,
thank you. Brendan.
So I have an analogy that I've gone with for this exact topic, which is you can choose to sit this out, but it's the equivalent of being a possum in a freeway. If a possum goes and lays down on the freeway, the truck rolling down the road doesn't care whether you're interested or not, whether you're participating or not, it's going to roll right over you. And that's how it is for sitting it out in politics, is if you aren't using your voice, somebody else is going to use theirs, and it's going to count however they want it, and you don't get to say anymore. But I think there's another side to that, because my first instinct is to kind of shake people and say, you need to participate in this. This affects your life whether you want it to or not, or whether you're paying attention or not. But what we have to keep in mind is that that is a luxury for some of us. There are a lot of people for whom this system isn't working, their lives are not working, things are not set up for them in a way where they get to take the free time to check their phone and follow politics, or to think about how their school district is set up. They're thinking all day long about, how am I going to pay a medical bill? How am I going to get my kids to school? You know, if they're a single parent, that's probably where that ends. It's bills and your children, and you have no other free time to think about luxuries like politics and policy and the environment and all of these other things. So I think it's education, but it's really on those of us who do have the luxury and do have the ability to participate, to do whatever we can to make those things better so that we can bring those other people in and make this something that they can participate in as well.
Thank you. This next question will start with Parker. What is an idea or a belief strongly supported by the opposing party that you find worthy of bipartisan compromise? How does this issue help our district?
Well, I'm working on one right now. It's housing. It's a big one across all of Michigan. I'm working with a legislator from Grand Rapids. His name's Stephen Wood, and he's a nice guy. And we're working on single staircase legislation. It's not, the most sexy topic, if you will, but it's something that we really have to get to the bottom of, and it's these regulations in the housing space. My family's been in the plumbing and heating business for 130 years. We've seen the rise and the rapid rise of regulations across our housing space, and when we had this residential building code that was pages, just a few pages when it was first made, and now it's got 1,000 pages of regulations. We're working at trying to get rid of some of these regulations to cut the home building prices, and the hope is, this isn't a silver bullet by any means, but help lower these home prices when we're building. The single staircase legislation, right now you need 2 exits, 2 points of egress, exiting an apartment building, and ours is up to 4 stories. Well, ours would change it to 1 set of staircases. It would save hundreds of thousands of dollars in these builds, and when you do that, you're going to have more of these buildings being able to be built. So that's one item.
Thank you. Brendan.
Would you mind repeating
how
you worded that, please?
What is an idea or belief strongly supported by the opposing party that you find worthy of bipartisan compromise? And how does this issue help our district?
All right, I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit, because this is one where I think we, on the surface, are pretty much in lockstep, and it's data centers. But I've noticed a dichotomy that the Republican side seems to be a lot stronger toward a complete moratorium and blocking them out. And the Democratic side seems to be taking a case of, well, let's make sure that we regulate them so we have some structure in place. And I have, personally, the way I feel about these is that there is, and there's no way I have enough time to go into all of this, but there are multiple prongs on which we are being pressured to push these through. We are resisting them on the basis of the environmental concerns. They use tons of energy, they use tons of water. We are resisting them on the basis of what they're going to do when they're up. What kind of services are what could AI serve for us, but what is it actually going to be used for in terms of surveillance and, as Senator DeMoose mentioned, other, less positive impacts. But the thing that I think we could really learn from the Republicans on is that they seem to be focused on the fact that data centers are coming in, and they're really trying to push local communities in ways that they no longer have that power for. And they're trying to take zoning control away from, the data centers want you to keep your zoning control local because they know they can overpower you. And I think the Republicans are recognizing that really well, and I think the rest of us need to jump on board, because if we don't step in now, these small communities aren't going to be able to defend themselves.
Thank you. And Melissa.
Not to piggyback off of Brendan, but I agree with that. I think that a moratorium is incredibly important. I am more about just stopping entirely for a year and taking a breath and figuring out exactly what the ins and outs are of bringing those things into our communities. And I think that making sure that we are following the impacts to our natural resources should be like a #1 priority, because that is what drives our economy. That is what keeps our communities going. And I want to make sure that we're protecting that, but also the energy that they use. I want to make sure that we're making sure that they are bringing or putting back in what they're taking, and that they're giving to the communities that we, do say that they can build in. And I want to make sure that they're zoned properly as well. But for now, I think that taking that hard pause is an incredibly important thing to do. So,
thank you. This last question in this session will start with Brendan. The State House has 110 members, with only a dozen or so representing parts of northern Michigan. What issue is important to northern Michigan, but one that representatives from other parts of Michigan might not be that familiar with? And how will you work to expose those ideas to representatives who are not from northern Michigan, inform them about our needs, and educate them about what the region needs to move forward? Brendan.
Thank you. I think one of the big things, and I don't recall where this topic, I've heard this before, but the southern part of the state views northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula as a vacation. This is a playground for them. They come up here and they enjoy the natural resources, the views, the restaurants, all of the skiing and everything that we have, and then they head back home to their jobs. And I think with the minority representation that we have up here, it is critical that we work together. I mean, Republican, Democrat, all of us, and I know that a lot of you have been trying to do that already. It is critical that we work together to remind them that there are real people that live up here. People have their careers, their lives, their jobs here. I was just up in the Sioux this weekend, and it's one of the biggest things I heard from people up there is just this reminder that we are not just your playground. We are not just here for you to come in, rent an Airbnb so that we can no longer live in that house, use up all the resources and leave. And if they keep doing that, it's going to cost them as well too, because if they keep buying up all the houses for vacation rentals, we won't have anywhere for our workers to live. And we won't have anywhere, to bring nurses in. We're already going to be closing services in the hospital as a result of this. So I think it's critical that we stick together and we remember that this is a community of real people with real jobs and real lives, and we aren't just somebody else's playground.
Thank you. Melissa.
I'm going to take this issue really far north, and I would like to remind the legislators downstate of our MDOC officers and the effect that the staffing shortage is having on our families and communities throughout the entire UP. It's not just an issue right in Chippewa County, but it goes all the way over to the West End as well. And over the last year, when I've been speaking with them about it, a lot of them are shocked and surprised to even hear those kinds of things, because the facilities downstate have a little bit of an easier time filling in those vacancies, whereas the UP, because there's not as many people living here, we don't. And the effect that it's having on our community is that it's driving families apart, because these officers are stuck for 16 hours a day. They're missing out on graduations, birthdays, all of these important moments. And when you tell legislators that, they just kind of look at you like you have two heads, oh no, that's crazy. But that's actually what's happening. And so I would want to remind them that these officers are people too. They are community members too. They're not just there to just work their lives away.
Thank you. And Parker.
Yeah, I would say an issue that we have in northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula that you don't see anywhere else is our law enforcement officers are having to take these mental health patients downstate or to Wisconsin or to Indiana to find beds for them because we don't have them up here. So we have to really put a strain right now. If you go talk to Sheriff Learstein or some of these really good people, they have to send their deputies down 5 hours to go take these patients to these hospitals, and it's just crazy. We should have either the facilities up here to house these people. They shouldn't be kept in our jails. We're keeping a lot of these mental health people in our jails, and it's not the right place for them. They're not getting the help they need there. This is an issue that's not or is only unique to us up here, because in southern Michigan, there's all sorts of nice healthcare facilities where people can take them and they're within a half hour or so of where they live. For us, or you look at the Upper Peninsula, you're going to have to go 4, 5, 6 hours to take these people, and it's making our communities a little less safe when we're having these deputies drive all over the state of Michigan with mental health patients in the back of their vehicle. These folks are not mental health care providers. They're law enforcement agents. They shouldn't be doing this. So that's an issue I think we really need to take a big look at and try and solve.
Thank you. As we move to the end of this part of tonight's forum, we wanted to give each candidate a minute to leave you with some parting thoughts, and so we will start with Melissa on this one.
I just wanted to thank everyone for coming tonight, and I just wanted to emphasize that moving forward, we need to stop looking at this as us versus them, one side versus the other, and looking at it as we are rebuilding communities. We need to get back into the rooms with each other and have conversations with each other, and remember that we're neighbors, that we're, that's your pharmacist, your banker, all of these different things. They're not just some political side of the spectrum. And I want to see our communities come back together again because we are really struggling right now. Our kids are missing out on watching these connections happen. And so I just wanted to thank everyone again.
Thank you. Parker.
Well, thank you to the Charlevoix and the Petoskey Chamber for hosting another great forum. It was very nice. And North Central Michigan College for hosting us. For me, this job is service. I took a pay cut to take this job. It was an easy decision, though, because this district really needs help. It needs people who want to represent it, who really care about the people in it and all the nuanced issues that we have. But I'm very honored to be the Republican nominee, and I'll be on the ballot in August and November, but I don't have anyone running against me in August, which is very nice. It's very nice not to have anyone running against me. But I would say I'm very excited for the future of this district and for Northern Michigan. We've got real, I would say, champions of Northern Michigan policy and people who understand Northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula. That's who you want serving you, and it'd be my honor to do it again for another 2 years.
Thank you. Brendan.
So as I mentioned, I'm a professional engineer by trade and by career, and one of the biggest qualities of a lot of engineers, and definitely of me, is that I'm a problem solver. And I don't see problems and ignore them. I jump right in, I stick my nose where it doesn't belong, and I really don't leave the room until it's done. And I have caught myself spending a lot of time really complaining and hoping for things to be different than they are, trying to just will change into existence, and I finally got to a point where I said, this is for me to do. This is something that I can do, and it's a luxury that I have. I'm in a position, I'm very fortunate, where I can step away from my job and I can spend the time to do this work, to get these things done for Michigan, for Northern Michigan and for the Upper Peninsula. And it would be a mistake to give that up. It would be a mistake to not do everything that I can to use those problem-solving skills to make this a better place for everybody. So please come out and vote on August 4th. Bring your friends, family, anybody who's at least 18, and we'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for all of our state house candidates, right? I believe Nikki has some closing words for tonight's forum, but we thank them all for their participation tonight.
Thank you very much. We just wanted to say this obviously concludes our candidate forum this evening. On behalf of the Petoskey and the Charlevoix Chamber, we'd like to thank North Central Michigan College for their partnership, their venue team, their IT team, Professor Ledour as well for being our moderator. Please give them a round of applause. Also, a special thank you for all of our candidates this evening that were able to join us. And thank you. Thank you for attending. We encourage you, talk to the candidates. If you didn't have time this evening, follow up on their websites, their socials. Ask them the questions that matter to you that maybe you didn't hear answered this evening. Visit their websites, learn about their priorities. And because this was live streamed, you have the ability to share it or watch it again. So I'm going to task you with something. Share it. Share it often, share it widely, because it is your responsibility to be informed. And that is why we brought you all here this evening. That's why we brought our candidates here as well, is because your choice is determined by your ability to be informed on the issues that matter right here in our community. So share it often, please. And it's also your responsibility to get out and vote on August 4th. So thank you so much for joining us. Please be safe going home and have a wonderful evening.